Today in the Fresh Brew Run Club, my breakdown and first run reaction to the Nike Vomero Premium. Welcome to the Fresh Brew Run Club. My name is Aaron, and I am very excited about this video. I finally have my hands on the Nike Vomero Premium. So for today's video, we're going to do a breakdown of this shoe, what Nike's saying about it, what I think it's for. We're going to take a look at the bottom all the way to the top, all the details that I can see on this shoe, and then I'm going to lace them up and go for a 6 to 8 mile run, and about halfway through, just give my thoughts, my first run reaction thoughts on this absolutely absurd shoe. I have never seen a shoe like this, so I'm very excited to run in it. Of course, this is just my first run reaction, so things may change over time, so subscribe to the Fresh Brew Run Club so you don't miss my future videos. I'll definitely make a 100 to 150 mile review and then a 300 to 400 mile review breaking down like the durability and how this shoe holds up over time. So let's start with a little background on the Vomeros. I've made a bunch of videos about the Vomeros that Nike has put out this year. They have the Vomero 18, which is sort of their base model, like standard, somewhat cushioned daily trainer. I really like that shoe. Then they have the Vomero Plus, which came out more recently. This is more of a true max cushion shoe. I think it is the successor to the Nike Invincible 3. I made a bunch of videos about that shoe as well. And then finally, we have the Vomero Premium, which, I mean, it is premium. It's premium in how it looks. It's premium in price. It's premium in a lot of different ways. Hopefully it's premium when I'm out on a run, but we'll find out later today. This is the max cushion shoe in the Nike lineup. Nike is really hammering home that this is a max cushion shoe. They're talking about comfort. They're talking about recovery. They're talking about the smooth ride, all sorts of details describing this shoe. So my guess is this is going to be a easy run shoe, but more importantly, maybe a recovery run shoe. Now, one thing that really stood out to me in how Nike is describing this shoe, they put out this article that talks about the background of how this was developed. They show a bunch of prototypes. It's very interesting. I'll link it in the description below. But one of the things they mentioned was that it was inspired by an anti-gravity treadmill, which I had never really heard of an anti-gravity treadmill. I had to look it up. Apparently, an anti-gravity treadmill is a treadmill that is sort of wrapped in this like bubble, and they adjust the pressure inside of the treadmill. So essentially you're running at a different pressure to make it feel like there is less gravity, which is kind of an interesting concept. The fact they're saying that that inspired this shoe gives me some really high hopes. I'm really excited to see if we are going to get a little anti-gravity effect. That's something that I feel like I saw in a lot of cartoons as a kid. So we'll see if I can do a Neil Armstrong impression when I'm out there churning through easy runs in the Vomero Premium. So let's do a quick breakdown, starting with the bottom, the outsole. So this is Nike's like standard waffle outsole. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the waffle outsole. I find that the lugs or the nubs or the cleats on the bottom of waffle outsoles in the past get worn down and the shoe gets very flat very quickly. However, the Vomero Plus had the waffle outsole and that has lasted pretty long. I have 175 miles in my latest pair, the Vomero Plus, and it's held up. It has good traction. It has good grip on the road. So I have high hopes for the Vomero Premium's version of the waffle outsole. You can also see the exposed Air Zoom pods or airbags in the bottom of this shoe. I'm also very curious to see how durable this is. Like, what if I step on a rock or a sharp stick? Is it going to puncture that Air Zoom unit and destroy the shoes? It's a pretty solid material, and I think there's some sort of material inside the Air Zoom units that adds a little reinforcement. It doesn't look like it's just purely an air-filled bag in the bottom of the shoe, but there are two of those. They're exposed on the bottom. The other thing that I noticed that is kind of a really cool detail, on the bottom of the shoe, it says M10, heel 55.5 millimeters, forefoot 45.5 millimeters. 55.5 millimeters is the stack height in the heel, and 45.5 is the stack height in the forefoot. I have a size 10. It shows the size 10 here. I don't know if that changes. If you get a size 7, it shows, you know, M7, and maybe that's a different number. Let me know if you have a different size of this shoe, if that changes on the bottom. But that's a cool detail, especially for me as someone who makes YouTube videos about running shoes. It's nice to have the data. I don't have to look up the stats of this shoe on a website. It's right on the bottom of this shoe. And then the other part of the outsole that is probably the most noticeable portion is the width. This is by far the widest running shoe I've ever had. This is super wide, and that is most likely because the stack height is so high, they need to add some form of stability, so you're going to get a lot of width. So that's the outsole, pretty interesting design. And then finally with the outsole, it is not one solid piece of rubber. There are little individual squares within the outsole that expose that midsole foam, so probably a little bit of a weight saving measure, but just kind of thought that was interesting. It's not one solid chunk of outsole rubber. So moving up to the midsole, this is going to be what everybody is immediately going to notice about this shoe: a massive midsole, 55.5 millimeter stack height in the heel with a 10 millimeter drop to the front. It is actually two parts of Zoom X foam, which I think is very interesting. There's a bottom portion, then you have those Zoom Air units, and then you have the top portion here. So you can kind of see the split on the midsole. Curious to see if that's going to be a part that might come unglued or separated after a lot of use. I'll definitely keep track of that, but you have that huge chunk of Zoom X foam, which is Nike's like lightweight, high-tech foam, and then those dual air zoom units in the midsole. But like I said, this is by far the tallest stack height shoe that I've ever run in, so can't wait to try these out. And then moving up to the upper, pretty interesting upper. So if we look at the front of the upper, you have sort of like a plasticky, like mesh kind of upper. If I put my hand in the shoe, I can actually like see through it a little bit. So there may be a little bit of breathability in the forefoot area. It has a gusseted tongue, which means the tongue is attached to the side of the shoe. So the tongue's not going to slide around, which I like. And then the material that attaches the tongue to the shoe is also kind of a mesh. So you have almost like a dual mesh layer in the front of the shoe. So like I said, hopefully it's a breathable shoe. Moving to the back, it's a little bit different. You have much more padding, much more solid material, which I think is probably a direct response to all of the feedback that Nike got, all the feedback that many of you left in the comments of my Invincible 3 video about how that shoe had really bad heel lock. So I imagine the padding in this shoe will help to address some of those concerns. It's not like overwhelming padding in the heel area, but I think it's going to be enough to help your foot feel very cozy in that shoe without sliding around. Another nice feature, there is a heel clip here, which is going to add additional stability. The original Invincibles had this. The Vomero Plus did not have a heel clip, so it's interesting that they added one for the Premium, but I think that's a nice feature. The tongue is also pretty padded. Like I said, it's attached to the shoe, which I like, but a lot of padding in the tongue area, so it's going to be a nice, comfortable tongue. I think that means it's just going to stay in place really well, which I like. I mean, this is a max cushion shoe. I don't think people are going to be buying this shoe because it's the fastest shoe in the world. So having a more padded, comfortable tongue as opposed to something that is more lightweight, more streamlined, I don't think is that big a deal. I would actually prefer it for a max cushion, easy run shoe like this. The laces appear to be pretty standard. They're not like the stretchy laces that comes with a few other shoes. They're also not the laces that come with the Alphafly 3s where they're kind of like knotted, like they're harder to come unlaced. They're just pretty standard laces. And then the insole does come out. It is a removable insole, so if you want to switch out your own insole that you prefer for the one that comes with the shoe, you can. And then there is another layer of insole, which I will put what that is called on the screen because I'm blanking on it right now, but it is stitched to the inside of the shoe. I think that's there to provide some additional stability to just kind of hold the shoe together. I think that's a pretty good feature to have in a shoe. It's nice to see. So that's a quick breakdown of the shoe. I do want to talk about this from a design perspective. Overall, I think it's a really good looking shoe if you can kind of get past the absolutely outrageous stack height. I don't know if I would wear this like casually. I think the stack height is just like way too much, but if you can kind of get past that, I think this is a really good looking shoe, especially this colorway. It's kind of like a off-white, I believe Nike calls it coconut, with this orange detail. So the air zoom units are actually orange, and then there's this like airbrush effect on the midsole that makes it look like it's glowing, like it's hot lava or like it's a volcano erupting on some faraway planet, tying back into the anti-gravity space theme. But it also has a nice subtle detail that I like. I don't know if you can see it, but it says air right here, which reminds me a lot of the Nike up-tempo basketball shoes. That sort of design on the side of the shoes, that's a really cool touch. And then you have a couple swooshes. You have the bold swoosh here, the reverse swoosh here, the one on the back, and then the Nike Run logo here, and then a subtle logo in the toe area. So overall, just a really good looking shoe. The other cool little storytelling element of this, on the heel clip, it says not approved by World Athletics, which is kind of a funny little touch. So Conor Mantz can't wear this shoe because the stack height is too tall. It's not approved by World Athletics. Now, no one at that level is going to be wearing this shoe in a marathon. It's not a racing shoe, but kind of a nice little touch and adds a interesting little detail to the shoe. And then finally, I want to talk about the price. So this is a whopping $230 US, which Whew, that is a lot of money for a max cushion shoe that is probably only going to be for easy runs and recovery runs. I'll be totally honest with you, and I will always be honest with you, the viewer of the Fresh Brew Run Club. If it wasn't for the fact that I had a YouTube channel where I did videos about shoes, would I buy this? Probably not. If I was just looking for like 1 or 2 shoes a year, I don't know if this would be in my rotation. But anyway, I bought the shoe with my own money, so I'm excited to see how it goes. But $230 is a lot of money. As I mentioned earlier, I'll make a video at like 300 or 400 miles to see if I can really get my money out of this shoe. That's what I try to do with all the shoes that I buy and do reviews for, is get as many miles as I can out of them. So we'll see how this holds up. Based on the price alone, I have very high expectations for this shoe. It better last a long time. It better be like nothing I've ever run in before, because $230 is a lot of money. So that is enough talking about the Vomero Premiums. I am ready to lace these shoes up and go for a run, and I will report back to you at about halfway through my run just to give that initial sense of what it's like to run in the Nike Vomero Premiums. Let's go. Good morning. So here's the deal. I said I was always going to be honest with you, the viewer. This is actually my second run in the Vomero Premiums. I went out for my initial run yesterday. I just couldn't find a quiet place to film. Turns out at like 5:30 p.m. Downtown is pretty busy, pretty lively. So here I am on my second run, which I think is actually good, because yesterday I went pretty hard. Today I'm pretty tired, pretty fatigued, so really using these as a recovery shoe today. So first reaction to these shoes: these are incredible. I am blown away by these shoes, to be honest. These have exceeded my expectations so far. Just 2 runs into it, a lot of mileage to go, but an incredible shoe. So first things first, putting them on, they are a little bit roomy. This is one of the first Nike shoes that I would consider sizing down. I got a size 10. I think the size 10 is going to work for me, but there just is a lot of room in that toe box. I had to retie my laces a couple times on my first run just so that there was good lockdown around my foot. But after I figured that out, no issue. So once I started running, the most noticeable thing off the bat was I'm running higher, I'm taller, my head is up in the clouds. So it's definitely a different sensation. I have never run in a shoe like this. It reminds me of the first time I ran in an Invincible, which was the first max cushion shoe I ever ran in. This is like an extreme version of that. These are so soft, but you get so much energy return. It's incredible. I wanna say I was shocked at how bouncy these are, but when I say bouncy, I mean like bouncy like a basketball, not bouncy like the Adidas Evo SL, which is like a bouncy ball, like a firmer rubber that gets you that bounce. You can definitely feel the impact of the Air Zoom units. Now, I always do this when I run in a new shoe. I get that new shoe adrenaline. My first couple miles are usually faster than I anticipate, even if it is like a slower shoe, like a max cushion shoe. However, I think there's some speed in these shoes. I was able to maintain my marathon pace for a good amount of time through the course of my 8-mile run yesterday. I was flying. I'm not in marathon shape, so I can't maintain it no matter what shoe I'm wearing, but I was able to get down to that pace pretty easily and hold it. I wouldn't say that this is a marathon shoe, but I was shocked at how much speed I could get out of this shoe when I was going on my first run. So the shoe weighs 12.4 ounces, which for as much cushioning and midsole foam there is in this shoe, it actually feels lighter than it looks, I think. However, it's definitely a chunky shoe. So while it doesn't feel heavy, it just feels like there's a lot of mass on the bottom of your feet. So it took me a little while to adjust to that. Like, it was probably a couple miles. I didn't feel super confident in the stability of this shoe. It's just such a different sensation than any other shoe that I've run in, including the Vomero Plus, which looking back on the Vomero Plus, that shoe just feels like a run-of-the-mill, you know, kind of cushion shoe compared to the Vomero Premiums. Really impressed by the Premiums over the course of my first 2 runs. So once I adjusted to the height of this shoe and the softness and the bounce, I got a little more confidence in the stability. Similar to the Vomero Plus, I wouldn't take a sharp turn at a high speed in these. I think there is a risk of twisting your ankle just with the sheer height of this shoe. The width does add a lot of stability. I'm sure the Strobel board and the heel clip all also contribute to that, but it is a little bit of a different sensation. It's soft. They're very soft feeling. After my first run, my feet felt a little bit sore, and I think that's just because the muscles in my feet aren't used to some of the like lateral softness, some of the movement within this shoe. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think you kind of get used to that. I would actually say it's probably a good thing in the long run to strengthen different muscles in your feet. That's probably pretty good for staying healthy. So it's just a very different sensation that you have to get used to over the course of the first couple miles. I forgot to mention the anti-gravity thing. It's not like I'm getting air on every step, but there's definitely a bounce effect that is noticeable, more so than other shoes. I think the other benefit of the anti-gravity treadmill is less wear and tear on your legs, and I think that's what these shoes are going to be good for. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm Buzz Aldrin. I don't feel like I'm Neil Armstrong, but definitely fun to run in, so that's that. So today's run is more of a recovery run. I'm tired. I ran later last night and I got up early and ran today so I could film this video and then get it out as soon as possible. I'm tired, my legs are tired, my feet are tired, and these are great for that. Like, it's definitely a shoe that is going to absorb that impact that really drains your legs. So as a recovery shoe, these are excellent. But again, I don't know, I just got a lot of speed out of these yesterday, so I don't even know what to make of this. I definitely need to run more mileage in this, but I would say if you like max cushion shoes, if you're a huge fan of max cushion shoes, if you like max cushion shoes as your daily trainer, I think these might work for you as a daily trainer, not just a recovery run shoe or a really slow run shoe only. I would contrast that with a couple shoes I ran in last year, the New Balance More V5 and the Brooks Glycerin Max. Both of those shoes have a very high stack height, tons of foam, but they were slow for me. I couldn't get any speed out of them. If I tried, my feet got tired, my legs got tired. It was like I was not running in sand, but a similar sensation. It was just hard to get that pickup. With these, like, I was at my marathon pace without really even thinking about it. And I only really had to slow down because, like, I'm not in marathon shape. So I don't know. I don't really know what to make of these. There's speed in these shoes, which is kind of surprising. So when I said earlier, like, these need to exceed my expectations, after 2 runs, they have absolutely exceeded my expectations. At the end of the day, these are like a fun shoe. It's fun to run in these. I was excited to get up this morning and go for my 2nd run in these. I'm excited to go for my 3rd run in these shoes. What a time. What a time we live in the running shoe world, where like every year it seems like there's some fun new shoe that comes out, and I think this is definitely the 2025 version of the fun shoe. So anyway, yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. Awesome first run. I can't wait to get more mileage in these. I'm definitely gonna make more videos about this shoe as I get more mileage and learn a little bit more about this shoe. But right off the bat, wow, incredibly impressed with the Nike Vomero Premium. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Have you run in this shoe? What do you think? Let me know. Happy to answer anything that I can. But that'll be the video for today. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you soon.